How you doing, everybody? It's Wardy here, and we got a big Mets update segment to get into right away, because not only is Pete Alonso and David Stearns in this continued stalemate, where Steve Cohen is certainly backing David Stearns in his negotiation process this offseason that we're about to highlight from the latest reporting, but ultimately how the Mets are considering other options for first base, including, yes, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., someone that we highlighted on the platform over a week ago is now becoming more of a reality, not necessarily at this point in time, but the fact that the Mets have reportedly checked in on Vladdy is telling of where they're potentially looking at not only short-term but long-term at the first base position. Let me see your initial reactions to it all in the comments down below, everybody. We're about to deep dive that reporting. Ultimately, how likely, unlikely is it that Vladdy could be traded before he hits the free agent market next offseason? And where do things fall not only for Alonso, here Vladdy, but also Alex Bregman? Will the Mets find themselves actively involved in his market again from where we've heard very little of to this point over the past couple weeks? We're going to highlight as well where there's interesting contract demands on that front, everybody. So let me hear it all in the comments down below. Thank you so much for smashing a like and subscribe on, and thank you all so much as well for hearing from our amazing sponsor at BetUS that has you covered with all your sports betting needs. You guys know the drill by now. Head over to betus.com.pa today. If you guys are sports bettors and know how to bet responsibly, please do not get involved if you feel like you can't control yourself or don't know what you're getting yourself into here. This is more so for the people that know what they're doing and can do it comfortably here at BetUS for whatever you want to bet on, everybody. And if you use Wardy's promo code YouTube150, you too will get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, $125 on your second and your third, up to $2,000 for whatever you want to bet on. And I'm hammering here. We're going to go with a two-leg parlay tonight, folks, in my NBA picks. I'm going with the Dallas Mavericks and the Denver Nuggets, both on the money line to win outright. This is a $20 parlay with a potentially total $60 payout should both these legs hit. Feel free to tail this bet, everybody, but please know I'm not a sports betting expert, just a diehard sports fan that loves to place daily bets here at BetUS. But now, folks, let's hop back in this one, because as you see from SNY's Hot Stove last night, there still remains a fairly significant gap between Alonso and the Mets and David Stearns. And it's very interesting to highlight that right there, because what is the most notable thing? A fairly significant gap, even after hearing reportedly through Jim DeCat over the past week that Pete Alonso has approached the Mets with a 3-year contract offer, probably right around the AAV that they're willing to do, including opt-outs. And yet the fact that we are still not at the finishing line, which I hopefully believe is going to be happening soon. Sean and I feels like it's going to be happening soon. As someone that's been training with Alonso every day, you could just tell by the smirk on his face. I feel it's inevitable to happen as well. It's still this stalemate. It's this staring contest, this little Western standoff, if you will, where we're going to see who's going to shoot first. But here's the thing. David Stearns isn't shooting first. He ain't going to, because he doesn't need to. And that is where Pete Alonso finds himself in this market. And based on the latest reporting from Andy Martino of SNY, Steve Cohen fully supports what David Stearns is doing, because they would love Alonso. They love him, not only as a person, but as a player, and want him to return and would like there to be a quick transition and get him back to Queens for the 2025 season. But we're not at a point where they're not going to be waiting too much longer to get something done here. The Mets are not going to wait until late February to make a significant decision for their roster for 2025, just because that's what Scott Boras wants them to do. That is not the case here. And what we have further learned through Steve Cohen in the Scott Boras type negotiations is that this has very much more so to do with Steve Cohen and his willingness than anything else. Scott knows he doesn't want to hurt that relationship, and he knows that there's no man with deeper pockets, bigger pockets, not only for Alonso, but for anyone in the foreseeable future that the Mets find themselves going after this offseason. But as we talk now, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., everybody, listen in. This is from Andy Martino. The Mets are holding the line with Pete Alonso, and Steve Cohen fully supports David Stearns' approach. Among many alternatives, they have checked in on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And if you break down further on this piece that we're about to get into on this piece here on from Andy Martino, it does go on to say that according to league sources, Stearns and the Mets are holding the line on both the length and dollars of their short-term offer, which includes an opt-out after the first year. The exact figure is unknown, and owner Steve Cohen is fully supportive of Stearns' approach, according to sources with direct knowledge of his thinking. The Mets have consistently, I believe sincerely, said that they view Alonso as a great person, yada, 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 they would like him back. And what we know is that the Mets do have their in-house options, and Mark Vientos, Brett Beatty, Luis Angel Acuña, Roddy Mauricio, you name it, that they can toy with in the first and third base positions. They can rotate multiple options as well, and they don't want to stick with one certain guy there at the hot corner if they want to see what other kids can provide upside for them. And in the external market, the Mets still have a great chance of bringing in Jesse Winker, which is a very possible reality, according to Andy Martino and many others. Anthony Santander's in that mix to a lesser degree, but Vladimir Guerrero Jr. looms as obviously the most intriguing and obviously the least likely to happen right now, but I would definitely argue the most likely to happen at some point this year outside of Alonso. And the fact that the Mets have already checked in with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. reportedly this offseason tells me a lot, because mind you guys, just 8 days ago on the platform, we did a live stream, and we're going to be live again later tonight, guys, so make sure you're chiming in the content. We're going to talk more on the Mets IFA signings headline by Elian Pena. I had SNY's Joe DeMeo in a video that came out earlier this morning on the signing of arguably the biggest name, not named Roki Sasaki in this class in Pena and his upside, so check out that content. Be on the lookout for a live stream later on Vladdy, the IFA pool, all the Mets signings they did today, and everything on the latest with Alonso, etc. But the reason why I highlight this is because, again, no later than 8 days ago, we had Jim Riley from Ballcap Sports, a great friend of the channel and a diehard Blue Jays fan of the channel, as he gave his own Mets Blue Jays trade proposal. And that trade proposal included, again, this is to really go in line with the trade simulators that we see online, but it had Ryan Clifford in there, it had Ronnie Mauricio, had also Tyler McGill and Blade Tidwell, and that, based on value through baseball trade values, would get a trade done for Vladdy right now. Now, every Mets fan, without hesitation, is probably doing that trade right away and sending all those players to Toronto, rightfully so, because Vladimir Guerrero Jr. would undoubtedly be not only a lightning rod in this Mets lineup, but again, when you look at upside, when you look at how much Vladdy can give you immediately and long term, should you be able to ink an extension done with him, if you could somehow, some way pull out a trade, again, not saying a trade's going to happen, but the reason why the Mets are checking in now has a lot to do with their continued interest leading up to the trade deadline and inevitably next offseason, should Vladdy, of course, hit the free agent market. But what you're getting someone in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is, again, one of the best first baseman, DH, third base options in the game. Obviously, far more in the first base DH front than anything else, and for great reason. But the reason why we were all enamored with someone like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has also a lot to do with what we have seen with, again, the simple facts of where he has put himself in his young career at the age of, and I apologize, everybody, the age is wrong in the template down below. Vladdy's 25 going into his age 26 season, the age I had from Alex Verdugo, my previous template there. So he's 25 or so. But Vladdy, after a 30 home run, over 100 RBI season this past year, he's looking for an absolute bag. He didn't go through arbitration with the Blue Jays. Surprisingly, they settled at just over $28 million for this year. But there is a lot of skepticism on Vladdy returning to the Blue Jays after this season, which is why teams are nipping out of the heels to already call in on someone like him. And in comparison to Alonso, Alonso's entering his age 30 season, was back-to-back down-powered years, which, again, we all saw what he did in the postseason. That was tremendous. But the same exact reason why other teams are not willing to go anything beyond a 3-year deal with opt-outs for Alonso is the same reason why David Stearns is so stubborn to even go to the lengths that Alonso even wants in a shorter-term format. That just shows you how much the Mets not only love Alonso, but are more than willing to be okay without him for the foreseeable future, because they have confidence in not only in-house options, but in potentially their next long-term option here, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Now let's get into how this is not only a possibility, more so on the trade deadline offseason front than anything else, but why this very well could be a foregone conclusion in similar ways to Juan Soto. Because yes, we have heard in the public eye for a bit now, through Bob Nightingale of USA Today, among others, that there's a lot of belief that Vladdy will go to the Boston Red Sox should he hit the free agent market next offseason. They are fully prepped to bring him in. Big Papi's already been vouching for him plenty, from one Dominican star to another here. And while Vladdy does have his personal ties to Canada, as someone that grew up in the Montreal area during his time in Mr. Vladdy Sr. playing with the Expos, it doesn't change the fact that there's still a massive gap between what the Blue Jays are willing to do for Vladdy, what Vladdy wants. The latest reporting per TSN indicates that the Blue Jays haven't even approached Vladdy with a number that starts with 4, when Vladdy wants well over $400 million, and he will be in that 500 plus north range. As much as fans may not want to hear that, what he will be seeking in the free agent market. And this is not about what you guys think is necessarily right for a first baseman on value versus what the market value is going to be. The same way that no one in their right mind ever thinks that Juan Soto on a contract of north of $800 million at all makes sense. It doesn't. Even with us hopefully winning multiple championships with him, it doesn't change the fact that still that's a boatload of money for one guy. It's beyond undeserving. It just, if we take a step back, we understand that. But based on the market value, the Blue Jays and Vladdy are nowhere close. They're not going to be yanking an extension this year. That's why the Mets are calling in, because even if the Mets do bring back Alonso, and we've talked about this numerous times on the platform, but we will again, and we will highlight it as well in tonight's live stream beginning around 8 or 8:30 p.m. Eastern, so make sure you guys are chiming in for that one. Really appreciate it. But the reason again why the Mets are so willing to part ways with Alonso and are very stubborn on a short-term contract is because of this exact player pursuit. As Andy highlighted in his article, as we've highlighted on the channel going back to 2+ weeks, the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Mets connections are only going to begin. They're going to steamroll all throughout the regular season, all leading up to the trade deadline, especially if the Blue Jays find themselves in a selling spot because they are underwhelming, which would be far from shocking should that happen. You know that they're going to be looking for an absolute big suitor, and we know that the Mets will have assets to make it happen. Would the Mets be willing to go the lengths to trade for Vladdy mid-season if it would mean that they could help with extension talks? Yes, but it makes far more sense if you don't have Alonso. If you have Alonso this year, I don't see the Mets really going all in for Vladdy until next offseason, but that's the entire point of this, and this is exactly what I've been preaching to the choir here for a bit on the platform. The Mets signed Pete Alonso to, say, north of a 3+ year contract with an opt-out after the first and or second season. That allows not only Alonso to hit the free agent market again and look for a bigger bag. Hopefully he has a stronger, more consistent 2025 batting behind Soto all year long, Lindor and everyone else in company, and then he can seek a deal more in the Freddie Freeman, Matt Olson range, and it's more deserving should he have himself more of a bounce back quality 162 in 2025. And for the Mets, the benefit for them then is that they can still consider bringing Alonso back even if he opts out of the deal, while also heavily considering a guy that fits both their short and long-term bill better, we can all argue, in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I love Alonso to death. This is nothing personal against him. But again, when you look at Vladdy, when you look at Alonso side by side, if we take our personal fandom away and our appreciation of Alonso, knowing he's an in-house talent, and I know that means something, but it also means something to make sure you're building the best team to make you a perennial contender year in and year out. Juan Soto was such an anomaly, not only because of him being a generational type hitter, but his age, which allowed that 15-year contract where it wasn't completely out of the realm of possibility, where he will be around 40, 41 when it's up. In the case of Vladdy, he will be seeking a 10+ year contract, which will have him then into his mid to late 30s. That is very feasible. That's very much in line with what the Mets would be willing to do. They're not opposed to long-term commitment. They're just in favor of it for guys that are still not only in the peak primes of their career, but maybe still have more to offer here from what we've seen at this point. I think there goes without saying, we've all seen probably the best of Alonso statistically at this point in his career, and while he may thrive tremendously with Soto should he return this season and all those things, we know what we're getting with Alonso. When it comes to Vladimir Guerrero Jr., there's not only a consistency with him, which is so superior with the tremendous contact hitting, the on base, the slugging, the gap to gap. I mean, just the fact that he had an over 300 average alone and consistently churns out 30+ home run seasons, north of 100 RBIs year in and year out, and could give you that for the next 5, 10+ years is a very appealing thing for a Mets team that I think would also benefit from further building this culture of not only Dominican players, but Puerto Rican players, Venezuelan players. Players of different Spanish descent in general have really boded well. We've seen in Queens, it's not only been great with the fan appreciation, which we know we have so many Puerto Rican, Venezuelan, Dominican fans, you name it. And I mean, I'm not one of them, but I certainly appreciate every aspect of it as someone who loved being a part of the WBC in person in Miami when it was happening with Venezuela versus Puerto Rico, just excluding the Diaz situation, obviously. But you think of Soto and Vladdy, how they compare together, what they could build here in Queens with Lindor, with Vientos, with Alvarez. And I mean, how do you not get it beyond ecstatic at the thought of that as a Mets fan? So Mets fans, and final thing to leave you with on Vladdy before we talk a little on Bregman, then get out of here. Let's also not forget a very key signing the Mets did over a year ago that may benefit them just a little bit more now than ever, and that was signing Vladdy Miguel Guerrero, which is the son of Vladdy Sr., and yes, is the younger brother of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. The Mets signed him in the IFA pool just over a year ago or so now, everybody, and I actually have it pulled up right here. Let me see if I can show you guys. Just give me 1 second. Should be right here. Yeah, you guys can see that graphic right there. Oh, grab the wrong thing. That's all me, everybody. I apologize, but let me just pull this up 1 second here to see if I can get exactly what I want to show you guys from scrolling down. Let's see if I can get rid of that. Let's focus on the window capture. There we go. Okay, there we go. You guys see that? Mets signed slugger Vladimir Guerrero Jr. from just around a year ago with 14,000 views. There he is to the right. There is the little Vladdy. There's his daddy. And now we're talking about his brother. So similar to kind of how the Mets almost signed Elian Soto, the younger brother of Juan Soto 2 years ago, before he last minute opted to then sign with the Nationals instead, even though Soto was already leaving DC by that point. It's interesting. I wonder if Elian feels the same about the decision or if that's really changed since then, knowing that Soto will be a Met for the remainder of his career. But you have to wonder about that connection just a little bit as well between his younger brother and himself. How much is family going to be a priority for him? How much is the bag going to be a priority? All those things. And the hospitality, look no further than Steve Cohen and Alex Cohen and their willingness to go as far as humanly possible to get and land the best players year in and year out. And if we just take a slight moment to appreciate the gorgeousness that is the baseball savant numbers here of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. this past season, 98th percentile in batting run value, 98th in XWOBA, 100th in expected batting average, 98th rather in expected slugging, 98th in average exit velocity, 91st in barrel percentage, 97th in hard hit percentage, 62nd in LA sweet spot, 95th in bat speed, which is just absurd, night and day from what we see with Alonso to a degree. Squared up percentage, 74th percentile, chase percentage, 56th percentile, 68th percentile whip percentage, 93rd in K percentage, and night and day from Alonso. Vladdy doesn't strike out. That's so appealing to have a slugging first baseman that doesn't strike out and absolutely rakes, and again was 65% better than the average batter in baseball this past season. For context, Juan Soto was 80% better than the average batter last year, so pretty good. 78th percentile in arm strength. Yes, we know he's not known for his defense, but sprint speed in the 45th percentile. A lot of people have given Vladdy flack for his size over the years, but he really slimmed down the past year and a half, and for him to basically be a league average in sprint speed is all the more reasons as to why I'm very appealed with someone like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So guys, let us know in the comments down below how for or against you are with the potential Vladdy pursuit, as the Mets are actually now considering him. What was something that was initially thrown out there by fans, including myself and others, and Jim Riley at Ballcap Sports especially, among many others over the past number of months, is now becoming a further reality. Might not be now, but it does feel like it may become a great one at some point in time, even if it doesn't happen until next offseason. But now, folks, let's go from talking about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to wrapping up the show here, talking about Mr. not Pete Alonso, because we talked about Pete, but let's get into Alex Bregman here, because what's going on with Bregman is very fascinating to me, and what I'm going to highlight for each and every one of you guys is the latest here. Let me just move this over here. Let me make sure that I have everything set up, and I do believe that we are good to go. We can get rid of this little thing over here as well, and I apologize also for the delay, everybody. I had things a little bit set up differently from how I typically go about my organization for this. So anyways, as we go down here and as we highlight, shout out to my guy Robbie Hyde as well, who had this on X and had it brilliantly. And in this piece from Robbie Hyde, he notes how Carlos Baerga said the other day on his pod that the Red Sox have offered a 3-year deal with an opt-out for Alex Bregman. I also think there's mutual interest because he's hit well at Fenway, and I agree, but Baerga stated that he wants at least 5 years. And we've known that with Bregman. Bregman's been shooting for the stars like Alonso for a 6-7-year contract, but the reality of it happening feels slim to none at this rate, given this small market that he certainly has at the moment. Between the Detroit Tigers, the Boston Red Sox, and Toronto Blue Jays, who are noted not only through Baerga, but also John Morosi, stating that the Blue Jays had a massive offer on the table for Alex Bregman, far and away the biggest one he has had this offseason, both on probably AAV and length, but he said no. And the reason why Bregman said no is because Bregman doesn't want to be a Toronto Blue Jay, more than likely. Alex Bregman, I think, best fit based off of connection with the manager. You think at AJ Hinch, you think at Detroit, but they don't want to go the term that Bregman wants. There's still a sizable gap. There's still a gap here with the Red Sox as well, which is very notable because Bregman, I think, would make sense short term if he wants to try to hit the market again, because he's finding himself more in the situation similar that we have seen someone, unfortunately, like Matt Chapman from a couple off seasons ago, where he had to settle on a short-term high AAV deal with the San Francisco Giants, then got a longer-term deal out of that, extending with the Giants. But again, he banked on himself, betted on himself, and thankfully for his case, got a bag that he was happy happy with on a longer-term deal. The case of Bregman, who's already won the championship multiple times, who knows what it takes to win, cheating scandal or not, already still in the peak prime of his career, a consistent third baseman, one of the better ones in Major League Baseball. You could definitely argue top 5 in that category for sure. But Breggy now, rightfully so, wants a long-term deal. No one's giving it. So if we find ourselves in further category where the Red Sox are throwing a 3-year offer, including opt-outs, if you're the Mets as a team that's been linked to Bregman the past this offseason, whether it's more fluff or real has, yet to be seen based on what's going to happen with these Bregman pursuit when it is eventually, done with, and we're going to find out where he lands. If this is actually true and Bregman is going to find himself more in that 3-year category like Alonso, like another Scott Boras, you'd have to imagine it's in the best interest of the Mets to try to pounce here as well. Now, do I think the Mets are the most appealing to Bregman on a 1-year opt-out? No, I don't at all. I think Fenway would be more appealing based on his ability to juice his numbers half the season in that batter's ballpark versus a pitcher's park like Citi Field. But what does benefit Bregman as well is if he joined the Mets after, say, Alonso returning and having Soto, this would be a much deeper lineup that he would be a part of than what he would be there in Boston. Even with Rafi Devers, even with a healthy Tristan Casas and everyone else in company, doesn't change the fact that the Mets would simply have the more lethal, more deadly lineup by far, and Austin Lamp, where he could thrive and get more pitches to hit, I really think could benefit him because he would not be looked at as the guy by any stretch, but as just another piece, like he was a piece of multiple pieces as part of that puzzle there in Houston for all those years. So Mets fans, simply put, my question to each and every one of you is, if this is a 3-year range which we're going to find ourselves with Bregman, should he not be able to even get 4 or 5 years what he's hoping for at this rate right now through as a Scott Boras client? Should this continue to drag out, say, as we get deeper into January and February, do you think it's in the best interest of the Mets to try to pounce here as well as doing everything with Alonso? Because they can comfortably spend on Alonso, spend on Bregman, spend on potentially another outfield DH bat, but I think that would be less likely if you bring in Bregman, obviously, because then you can shift Vientos more to DH and then still add the bullpen, and you are still in a very comfortable spot financially for the entire year and the years going forward. Let me know if you're for or against that pursuit, everybody, in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, let's go Mets, baby. Be on the lookout for our live show later on this evening. We'll probably be live tomorrow as well, potentially with a special guest, barring changes, and we'll have content out, of course, any breaking news topic, you name it, here on the WardyNYM platform, all off season and then in season long for our regular season coverage. Thank you guys again. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.